The conference room in the workshop was a blend of cutting-edge technology and the timeless essence of magic. The holographic display hummed softly, casting a faint glow over the room as the team assembled. Gunnar stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding as always. Clara sat to his left, her posture straight, her expression unreadable but attentive. Omega lay near her feet, his sharp eyes following every movement. Derren leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed as he waited. Ashley and Desiree sat beside each other, their expressions calm but focused. Eli stood near the display, her glowing orb floating lazily beside her, ready to record or assist. Gunnar's gaze swept over the room. All right, let's get started. There's a lot to cover. He began by recounting his trip to Alfheim, his voice steady and deliberate. The trip wasn't just about Clara's graduation. We've solidified a partnership with the artisans in Alfheim. They'll be helping us with the production of enchanted ammunition. He gestured toward Eli. I need you to handle the first shipment. You'll meet with the artisans to work out the details and make sure everything's running smoothly. Eli nodded, her silver hair catching the light. Understood. How much are we sending? 50,000 rounds of 5.56, Gunnar replied. They're ready to go. Your job is to explain the specifications and ensure the enchantments are consistent. He turned to Derren. You're going with her? Derren raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. Me? Why? You've never been off-world, Gunnar said bluntly. It's time you got a look at how other realms work. Consider it an opportunity to broaden your perspective. Derren smirked faintly. Can't argue with that. Gunnar leaned against the table, his tone growing more serious. While in Alfheim, I also secured permission to establish a permanent gateway between the workshop and Alfheim. It'll be housed in the secure portal room downstairs. The room buzzed with quiet murmurs. Ashley leaned forward, her green eyes sharp. A permanent gateway? That's huge. It is, Gunnar agreed, and it's going to be a key asset moving forward. But it also makes us a potential target. He turned to Ashley, his blue eye locking onto hers. That's where you come in. I need you to develop a comprehensive security plan for the portal. Work with Desiree if needed, but I want every possible threat accounted for. Ashley nodded, her expression serious. Consider it done. Gunnar's sharp gaze swept over the room as the team settled back into their seats. All right. Now that you know what's coming, it's time for you to fill me in. What did I miss while I was gone? Eli took the lead, gesturing toward the holographic display. The images of glowing runes and the industrial site filled the room with an ominous light. We've identified an active Nexus, she began, her tone brisk but tinged with unease. It's located at an abandoned industrial site just outside the Shadow Realm Bar's territory. These runes, she highlighted several glowing symbols, are advanced. They're channeling magical energy, possibly for amplification or distribution. Ashley chimed in. Desiree and I scouted the site. It's definitely active, and the energy underfoot was intense. We didn't engage, but whoever's using this Nexus knows what they're doing. Desiree nodded, her grey eyes steady. The place was quiet when we got there, but it won't stay that way. If someone's planning to weaponize the energy, we need to shut it down. Gunnar's gaze shifted to Derren. And the bar? What did Rose have to say? Derren leaned back, his expression guarded. She was unusually cooperative, said the drug isn't hers and that it's more than just a high. It's a leash, turns people into puppets, strips them of their will. Gunnar's brow furrowed, his tone grim. And she doesn't know who's behind it? She claims she doesn't, Derren replied, but something spooked her. She was distracted, almost nervous. That's not like her. That means she knows more than she's letting on, Gunnar said, his voice edged with frustration. We'll deal with that later. Eli folded her arms, her violet eyes thoughtful. We're dealing with forces beyond our usual scope. These runes and the Nexus. This isn't something Earth-based magic users could do alone. We need someone with extensive knowledge of ley lines and enchantments. She hesitated for a moment, then added, "We need Eliana." The room fell silent. Gunner's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of tension in his posture. "I can reach out to her," Eli continued. "If we explain the situation, she might—" "I'll talk to her," Gunner interrupted, his tone firm. "This isn't something we delegate." Eli nodded, stepping back slightly. "Understood." Ashley leaned forward, her tone more urgent now. "Gunner, if this Nexus is tied to the drug, we need to act fast. The site is too well placed for this to be random, and with what Rose said about people being controlled, this could escalate quickly." Desera added, "There's also the matter of security. If we hit the Nexus, we'll need a solid extraction plan. Whoever's behind this won't let it go without a fight." Gunner nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Agreed. We don't make a move until we know what we're up against. That means getting answers. And fast." Gunner leaned against the table, his cybernetic hand resting on its surface. "Here's what we're doing. Derren, Eli, you're still going to Alfheim to deliver the ammo and coordinate with the artisans. But while you're there, I want you to keep your ears open. If anything about these runes or this drug comes up, I want to know." He turned to Ashley. "Start planning security for the Nexus site. If we have to move in, I want every angle covered." Finally, his gaze rested on the entire team. "And I'll handle Eliana. Once I've briefed her, we'll reassess and decide our next steps." The team nodded, the weight of their discoveries settling over them. Despite the tension in the room, there was a quiet sense of determination. They had their assignments, and they had a leader who wouldn't let them falter. The workshop buzzed with activity as Derren stood near the central loading bay, securing the final straps on the robotic pack mule. The machine, a sleek and compact marvel of engineering, shifted slightly as it adjusted to the weight of the ammo crates strapped to its frame. Its quadrupedal design and smooth, quiet movements gave it an almost lifelike quality. Eli and Gunner entered, their conversation halting as they caught sight of the robot. Eli's violet eyes widened slightly in surprise, while Gunner simply raised an eyebrow. "What the hell is that?" Gunner asked, crossing his arms. Derren smirked, giving the mule a pat. "Meet the future, boss. Got it from a buddy in the Marines. They're testing these out for supply runs in tough terrain. Figured it'd be perfect for hauling our ammo." Eli stepped closer, her interest piqued. "A Boston Dynamics model, huh? Military grade, by the look of it. Does it have any defensive capabilities?" "Not yet," Derren admitted, "but it's durable as hell and can handle the weight. I figured it'd save us some muscle and keep things quieter." Gunner circled the robot, his keen eye assessing its design. "And your Marine buddy just handed this over?" Derren shrugged, his smirk widening. "Let's just say I called in a favor. Besides, if it works out, it might be worth looking into for future missions." Eli crouched to inspect the machine, her silver hair falling over one shoulder. She ran a hand along its reinforced chassis, her expression thoughtful. "It's impressive. I could probably upgrade it, add a rune matrix for shielding or a basic defense system." "Let's keep it simple for now," Gunner said, his tone practical. "We're using it for transport, not combat." Eli nodded but couldn't hide her curiosity. Still, this could be a game changer. If it handles the ammo run without any issues, it's worth considering for larger operations. Derren grinned, leaning against the mule. "See? Told you it was a good idea." Gunner shook his head, though a faint smirk tugged at his lips. "We'll see. Just make sure it doesn't malfunction halfway through the portal." As Derren secured the last crate, Eli tapped a few commands into her comm device, syncing with the portal room's systems. "The portal is calibrated and ready. I'll finalize the connection to Alfheim once we're down there." Gunner glanced at the mule one last time before turning to Derren. "You're responsible for this thing. If it screws up, it's on you." Derren gave a mock salute. "Understood, boss." With everything in place, the team prepared to move out, the weight of their mission balanced by the quiet hum of progress and innovation. Derren stepped back, admiring the robotic mule, as it adjusted its weight distribution. He glanced over at Gunnar and Eli, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Hey, while we're at it, any chance we can make the portal big enough to get the wolf mobile through?" Gunnar and Eli exchanged a brief glance before responding in perfect unison. "No." Derren raised his hands in mock surrender, laughing. All right. Worth a shot." Eli shook her head, a faint smirk on her lips. The amount of energy required to expand the portal, that much would destabilize the entire system. And even if we could, I'm not spending weeks recalibrating the warding runes because you want to take your toy for a joyride. "It's not a toy," Derren shot back, feigning indignation. "It's a tactical vehicle, and it's got a better sound system than your lab." Gunnar pinched the bridge of his nose. "We're not discussing the Wolf Mobile. Focus." Gunnar stepped forward, his tone shifting to the authoritative voice the team knew well. "Here's the plan. The three of us, Eli, Derren, and I, are heading to Alfheim. Eli, you'll deliver the ammo and coordinate with the artisans. Make sure they understand exactly what we need." Eli nodded, her demeanor all business. "Got it. I'll also take notes on their process in case we want to implement any of their techniques here." Gunnar turned to Derren. "You'll back her up and handle transport. The mule is your responsibility, and I want you paying attention while you're there. Alfheim isn't like Lysandra's realm. It's stable, alive. You'll see what a realm should look like when it's not recovering from the devastation of a demon king." Derren's smirk faded slightly, his expression growing more serious. "Got it. The last time we were off-world, the place was rough. This'll be different." "It is," Gunnar said, his voice quieter but firm. "But don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. Alfheim has its challenges too." "What about you?" Derren asked. "I'm meeting with Eliana," Gunnar replied. "She needs to be briefed on the runes and the Nexus activity, and I want her insights on how to handle it. After that, I'll join you both to make sure everything's in order." Eli glanced at the robotic mule. "Once we're there, I'll need a few hours with the artisans. Derren, you'll help unload and oversee the transfer. Babysit the mule." "Got it," Derren said, patting the machine's side. "Anything else?" "Yeah," Gunnar said, fixing Derren with a pointed look. "Keep your head on straight. Alfheim isn't a vacation spot." Derren grinned, but there was respect in his tone. "Don't worry, boss. I'll behave." Gunnar's gaze swept over them one last time. "Good. Let's move." As the three headed toward the portal room, the tension of the upcoming missions settled over them. For Derren, it was a chance to see a world unlike anything he'd experienced before. For Eli, it was an opportunity to connect with masters of her craft. And for Gunnar, it was another step in a battle that felt bigger with every passing day. The portal room hummed with energy, its glowing runes casting an ethereal light across the reinforced chamber. Gunnar, Eli, and Derren stood before the swirling gateway, the robotic mule loaded with crates of ammunition, standing patiently at their side. Eli tapped her tablet, finalizing the portal calibration. "Coordinates locked. Alfheim is ready to receive us." Derren adjusted the strap of his rifle and patted the mule like it was a trusty steed. "All right, girl, time to show these elves what cutting-edge human engineering looks like. Try not to trip." Eli rolled her eyes. "It's not alive, Derren." "Not yet," Derren quipped, grinning. "Give me a weekend and a six-pack, I'll have it reciting poetry." Gunnar's patience was visibly thinning. "Derren!" "Yeah, boss. Let's go." The three stepped into the portal, the world around them twisting into a swirl of light and sound. Derren felt the familiar lurch in his stomach, the disorienting sensation of stepping between realms. When the light faded, they emerged into a world bathed in soft golden hues. Alfheim stretched before them, a realm of breathtaking beauty. Towering trees with leaves that shimmered like gemstones framed the landscape, while streams of glowing water wound through fields of impossibly vibrant flowers. The air was crisp and alive, humming with the subtle thrum of magic. Derren whistled low, taking it all in. Okay, this beats the hell out of Lysandra's realm. No offense to her, but that place was like walking into a post-apocalyptic nightmare. This is Alfheim, Eli said, her voice tinged with a reverence she rarely showed. A realm untouched by the kind of destruction the Demon King wrought. But don't let the beauty fool you, it has its dangers. I can live with a little danger, Derren replied, his grin widening as he turned to the mule. All right, buddy, let's see how you handle magical terrain. The mule beeped softly, its legs moving smoothly over the uneven ground as it began to follow Eli toward the artisan enclave. As they reached a fork in the path, Gunnar stopped. This is where we split. Eli, you know what to do. Derren, keep her covered and make sure the ammo gets there in one piece. Derren gave a mock salute. Aye, aye, boss. Don't worry. I'll make a great impression. They'll probably give me a medal or something. Gunnar's expression remained flat. Just don't embarrass us. Derren grinned. No promises. Eli sighed, grabbing the mule's lead controls. Come on, Derren. Let's go before he changes his mind about bringing you. As Eli and Derren headed down the path toward the enclave, Gunnar turned toward a narrow trail that led deeper into the forest. He adjusted the strap on his bag, his thoughts already shifting to his upcoming meeting with Eliana. As they walked, Derren glanced around, taking in the otherworldly sights. So, do I bow when I meet these artisans? Shake hands? Kiss a ring? What's the protocol? Eli didn't even glance back. You stand there, stay quiet, and let me do the talking. Sounds boring, Derren muttered. What's the point of being off-world if I can't make friends? Eli stopped abruptly, turning to face him. Derren, these are some of the most skilled artisans in Alfheim. They're agreeing to help us because Gunnar vouched for us. Do not screw this up. Derren held up his hands, his grin undeterred. Relax, Eli. I'll be on my best behavior. I doubt that, Eli muttered, turning back toward the path. As the mule beeped and followed, Derren couldn't resist a final comment. Hey, you think they've got good beer around here? You can't tell me a place this fancy doesn't have an artisan brewery or two. Eli groaned but didn't respond, focusing on the task ahead. Derren's light-hearted banter might have been exasperating, but it also reminded her that, despite the weight of their mission, some things, like Derren's relentless humour, remained consistent. Gunnar stood at the edge of Eliana's serene courtyard, the golden hues of Alfheim's sunset casting long shadows over the intricate runes etched into the marble beneath his feet. Eliana approached, her expression calm but her sharp blue eyes brimming with curiosity. I trust your journey was uneventful? She asked, her tone light as she gestured for him to sit at the stone table in the centre of the courtyard. As uneventful as it gets, Gunnar replied, setting his bag down and taking a seat. But that's not why I'm here. Eliana nodded, settling across from him. Tell me. Gunnar leaned forward, his voice low but steady. He explained everything. The Nexus site, the glowing runes, the mysterious drug circulating in the Shadow Realm bar, and the growing evidence that the Black Dawn was escalating their activities. Eliana listened intently, her hands clasped in front of her. These runes you describe, they're not something that would originate from Earth. They sound like advanced channeling markers, the kind used to harness ley line energy. That's what we thought, Gunnar said, but we need confirmation, and if someone's weaponizing it, it could destabilize more than just Earth. Eliana finished, her voice grave. This needs to be addressed immediately. Gunnar nodded. Which is why I came to you. We need your expertise. Eliana's expression softened slightly. I'll help. But to truly understand what we're dealing with, I need to see the Nexus in person. Observing it through your descriptions or artifacts won't be enough. She paused, her gaze drifting for a moment. Before we leave, I'll reach out to my Lorion. As senior council member, he needs to be informed. Gunnar raised an eyebrow. You think he'll back this? I'm not sure, Eliana admitted. But he has the authority to support us, or to stand in our way. The soft glow of Eliana's residence was a stark contrast to the heavy discussion Gunnar and Eliana had shared earlier. Now, as the evening deepened, Gunnar leaned against the balcony railing overlooking the shimmering forests of Alfheim, the air alive with faint whispers of magic. Eliana joined him, her presence as calming as the realm itself. She handed him a goblet of elven wine, the faintly glowing liquid catching the golden light of the lanterns. "They'll be back tomorrow," Eliana said softly, referring to Eli and Derren's mission with the artisans. "Until then, you should rest." "I'll rest when there's nothing left to fight for," Gunnar replied, his voice gruff but not dismissive. He took a sip of the wine, its warmth spreading through him. Eliana didn't press further, sensing the weight he carried. She placed her own goblet on the railing and turned to him. "I've spoken with Malorian. He's agreed to join us tomorrow." Gunnar glanced at her, his expression unreadable. The senior council member himself? Why? "He appointed himself as Earth's guardian," Eliana explained. "He's determined to see the workshop and understand the Nexus threat firsthand." Gunnar exhaled deeply, his cybernetic hand tapping against the goblet. "He's taking this seriously, then?" "He wouldn't have made such a decision lightly," Eliana replied. "This is as much a test of our alliance as it is a mission." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as the evening wore on. Eliana showed Gunnar to the guest room, a serene space adorned with soft, glowing runes and a view of the forest canopy. "You'll be comfortable here," she said, her tone warm but tinged with hesitation. "And safe." Gunnar glanced around, the unfamiliar tranquility of the room almost unsettling to someone used to more rugged accommodations. "It's perfect. Thanks." Eliana lingered in the doorway for a moment. "Gunnar, I wish there was more I could do." "You're already doing more than most," he replied, his voice softening. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have gotten this far." Eliana's gaze dropped, her hand resting lightly on the doorframe. And yet, it never feels like enough. There was a pause, the weight of their unspoken connection filling the air. Finally, Gunnar broke the silence. "Eliana, you've done more for Earth and for me than anyone could ask. Don't doubt that." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes carried a sadness she couldn't fully mask. "Good night, Gunnar." "Good night," he replied, watching as she disappeared down the hall. Eli led the way through the winding paths of Alfheim, her violet eyes scanning the landscape as they neared the artisan's enclave. The robotic mule followed obediently, its silent movements blending seamlessly with the serene magic of the realm. Behind her, Derren strolled casually, his rifle slung over his shoulder. The stark contrast between his laid-back attitude and the ethereal beauty of the realm wasn't lost on him. "So Keebler," he drawled, smirking as Eli turned her head slightly. "What's the protocol when we meet these artisans? Should I bow? Do an interpretive dance? Maybe recite a sonnet?" Eli sighed, shaking her head. "For the last time, Derren, stop calling me that." "Why? It fits," Derren replied, clearly enjoying himself. "I mean, you're the only elf I know who can hack a computer and enchant a sword at the same time. You're like the Keebler factory of magic and tech." Eli shot him a look over her shoulder, her patience clearly wearing thin. "If you want to survive this trip without me accidentally setting you on fire, I'd suggest dropping it." "Noted," Derren said, his grin undeterred. "But you gotta admit it's catchy." As they reached the edge of the enclave, Eli stopped, gesturing for Derren to do the same. The enclave stretched before them, a collection of intricately designed structures glowing softly with enchantments. Artisans moved gracefully between their workshops, their every movement purposeful and precise. Derren let out a low whistle. "Fancy place. Puts my old barracks to shame." Eli ignored the comment, her focus on the task ahead. "Stay behind me and let me handle the introductions. These artisans are some of the most skilled in Alfheim, and they're only working with us because of Gunnar's reputation." Derren gave a mock salute. Aye, Keebler." Eli closed her eyes briefly, exhaling through her nose. Let's just get this over with. They approached the largest workshop, where a tall elf with silver-streaked hair and a commanding presence awaited them. His sharp gaze took in the mule and its cargo before landing on Eli. "You're from Earth," he said, his voice smooth but tinged with curiosity. Eli inclined her head respectfully. "I am. Eliandra Vale, representative of Echo Division. This is Derren, my colleague." "Charmed," Derren said, flashing a grin. The elf's expression didn't change. "I am Malia, master artisan of this enclave. Let us see what you've brought." Eli activated the mule, and its compartments opened with a soft hiss, revealing the carefully packed ammunition crates. Malia examined the contents closely, his hands brushing over the bullets as if feeling for imperfections. "The craftsmanship is adequate," he said finally, though there was no malice in his tone. "You've provided detailed specifications. We will begin enchantments immediately." Eli nodded. "If you have any questions or need clarification, I'll be here to assist." Malia's gaze shifted to Derren. "And you? What is your role?" "Muscle," Derren replied with a shrug. "I lift heavy stuff and make sure nothing blows up." Malia's lips twitched, though it was hard to tell if it was amusement or something else. A simple but necessary role. "Exactly," Derren said, his grin widening. "Everyone needs a guy like me." Eli stepped in before Derren could say more. "We'll remain nearby until the transfer is complete. Thank you for your assistance." Malia nodded, motioning for several other artisans to begin unloading the mule. As they worked, Derren leaned toward Eli, his voice low. "Not bad, Keebler. I think he likes me." Eli shot him a withering look. "If you keep talking, I'll make sure you're the one carrying the crates back through the portal." Derren chuckled, unbothered. "Worth it."
Well, you found your way to the end, haven't you? That must mean you're curious, and we love curiosity around here. Before you vanish into the ether, take a moment to subscribe. It's just a click, and trust me, you'll want to stay in the loop for what comes next. And while you're at it, give the video a like. The energy exchange is good for you. Hit that notification bell too. You wouldn't want to miss out on any of our magical misadventures. Who knows what I might conjure up next? Alright, off you go. But remember, I'll know if you didn't subscribe. See you on the other side.